Hi, good morning, and welcome to this live streaming webinar on measuring the gingerol in ginger root and ginger powder. So it's probably just worth saying that I'll only have a few slides this morning, and what I have in front of me is the FoodSense Generation 4, some samples, ginger root, ginger powder, some capability to prepare those samples, and I will be doing some live testing on those samples pretty shortly. So with that said, this is not a sort of too many slides webinar. So let me jump into it a little bit. So as I say, I've got some ginger powder here. I've weighed out some ginger powder this morning, just to kind of say that I've weighed out about 100 milligrams. That's 0.1 grams on the balance. I've also got some ginger root in front of me. As I say, all the technologies in front of me now. The FoodSense Generation 4 is here, the apps here, the powders here, the ginger roots here. I've got a little garlic press. As I say, I've pre-weighed out the powder. So I do have these things in front of me, and this is not all going to be talk this morning, but I'll do quite a few measurements live in front of you. And I'll also do a bit of blending as well, where I'm going to blend some ginger root extract with some ginger powder and sort of show you how you can essentially augment a ginger root extract with some ginger powder and essentially increase the total gingerols and measure that in parts per million. So as I say now what this reminds me now that I'm actually going to go on to do a demo. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing my screen so my camera sort of jumps up a little bit more intense, and I will actually go to this camera, so you'll still hear my voice hopefully. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare the I'm going to extract, or I should say press, the ginger root. Now my ginger root, this is not a terrible thing, I'm only doing a demonstration, but this ginger root is actually, you know, several months old. It's not a criticism of the ginger root, it's just like realize it's hard to get some fresh. I have to wait a week to get any more fresh ginger root. So that said, I'm going to put it into the press. I'll press it, and then I've got some more ginger root here if I can't get that much. Yeah, but the juice, to be fair, is actually coming out. That's the nice thing about this technology. It's fairly quick that we don't need that much sample. I only need like 100 sort of microliters. So yeah, I can see it coming out quite nicely here actually. So there's more than enough here. I can smell it. So I'm not in fact, what I'm going to suggest is this is in fact not very pungent at all, this ginger root. And it's not a criticism of the ginger root. It's just that the material is a little bit old. But this is also an indicator that, you know, if you've got ginger root coming in and you think it's been stored for too long or stored inappropriately, you can probably do a test. Not probably, I mean, I can give you anecdotal evidence that this is a ginger root that's not been stored particularly well. I've stored it and it's actually a little bit, I don't want to say moldy and dried out, but anyway, what I'll do now is I'm going to put the sample in here. But what I'm getting to the point is that the gingerol actually in this ginger root was higher when I first obtained it, but now after several months it's actually not that great. So what I just did is I just took 100 microliters, I put it into this little vial, and now what I'm going to do, I'm being a bit more pedantic than I would normally be, but I just want to kind of really go through the prep. So I've squeezed it, only took 30 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so I did it pedantically because I wanted to kind of demonstrate, you know, clearly what I'm actually doing. You know, so everything I'm going to use, in fact, is in the shot this morning. So don't think I need lots of fancy equipment, but this is the sample now. So remember, I extracted the ginger root in front of you. I took 100 microliters of that, and I was being very pedantic. And then I added 900 microliters, or 9 times this, of the buffer. So there's my sample. I've got a vortex in front of me. The vortex is, for this kind of sample, is not so important because, in fact, I'm trying to mix a liquid with a liquid. So realistically, you know, it's easy enough to mix liquids. The vortex will be more useful when I actually come to the powder. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take that out of my way so it's a little bit, let's say, easier. And I've got my sample sitting there. I'm just going to take 50 microliters of my sample and I'm going to add that to the ginger sensor. It's easy enough to just flick in a ginger sensor, which I'm going to do. But what I want to do is I just want to name it in the app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name it like ginger extract. And I'll give it I just put the word 10 there because it just helps me remember that actually I did a 10x dilution on that. Right, so I've got that set up in my app. Now what I want to do is, now I'll take the 50 microliters that I said I would take. So I'll grab my 50 microliters, which I am doing. Right, so I've put the 50 microliters on there now. And what I'll do is I'll hit continue. Now, because I did a 1 in 10 dilution, it's absolutely fine to, I'll just press the 1 in 10 because that's what I did. I did a 1 in 10 dilution. I'll go start measurement and it will gather the data. So I can see my data arriving. I mean, I know I'm not going to dwell so much on the raw science today. I'm actually going to just gather the data. And now I've got the data and I've got the parts per million here. What I want to do, though, is I just want to do a recap because we just had somebody kind of join just a minute ago. So the recap is I took some ginger root, I pressed it in this, essentially I call it a garlic press, but it's a little sort of handheld press. I gathered the juice. I took 100 microliters of that juice and I dissolved it in 900 microliters of the buffer. And then I just tested 50 microliters on the sensor. I have said that this is really soft and moldy and dried out. So, and I'm not, you know, I'm not going to criticize myself for it. It's a good indicator actually that if you don't use fresh ginger root, it's actually not as pungent. So this is certainly not, I think on the scale of things, not that pungent. It's 266 ppm parts per million. Now what I want to do then, and what it gets me annoyed a little bit, is people don't have the data to back up what they're saying. They, you know, when they say something, they don't really have the data to back it up. So what I want to do then is I just want to go and say, at this point now, I can go into here. I could do a refresh here. And I can see that actually my data has gone up to the cloud. I'll just click on that. So I can see, you know, I actually see, you know, that I've got my, what I call my peak 1, my peak 2, my peak 3. I'm not expecting either of you to, you know, this is not that webinar today where I'm going to dive back into the science of what we're doing. But I mean, you can understand that that's quite a distinctive looking thing. If I can call it a thing, it's not very fair, but, you know, this is the raw signal. I've got my result here. I've got my raw signal here. I've got time and date of operator. I've got name of operator. If I wished to download this data, I can just delete that and I'll go export. In fact, what it's now done is it's opened up a PDF. Well, I'm just opening up a PDF. So I'm just demonstrating to you that, in fact, you know, the data's all saved up in the cloud anyway, and you actually have a report with, you know, the results in it, the time and date, the operator in it, the raw signal, so that, you know, it can always be kind of, let's say, questioned later on. So that's why I say I'm a bit fed up of people make claims, especially in the food industry, quite a lot actually, but there's no kind of objective traceability on that. Right, so what I've done so far then is I've tested ginger root. Now I'm going to make, I'll take my sample, put it aside because I might need that later on. That's my ginger root sample. Now what I've done is I've got 100 milligrams of ginger powder here. Nothing super special, nothing sourced in any particular way, but I've got some ginger powder in front of me, and I'm going to prepare a sample of that ginger powder. Now I have to be a little bit, well, I'm preparing everything live in front of you, so bear with me. Right, so I've put my 100 milligrams into this little tube. Again, I'm going to be more pedantic than I really wanted to be, but just to kind of really emphasize exactly what I'm up to, I'm going to add some buffer now. So 100 milligrams, and I'll put 9 of these in there, so that's 900 microliters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right. So I'm going to close this cap off. So here it is. Now, again, I like this science because you can see how quickly I actually prepared that sample. It's not the world's most beautiful sample. That's, again, a credit to the science that we use. Now I am going to need the vortexer because you understand now that, in fact, I've got a liquid and a powder, and I want to extract that gingerol into that. So the vortexer will really help now in that, because you can see the vibration on that vortexer. There's no way I can shake at the speed that this vortex is going. Just making sure that I get a good, I would call this a slurry. It's not, you couldn't call this, it's not so much a suspension, it's more like a slurry of material. But I'm doing this in a purposeful manner because I know what it's going to do. The ginger powder is too intense, but I want you to see the workflow of how I can get to an accurate answer. So there we go. I've got this kind of suspension there. What I want to do is I just want to name it here so I can find the data in a minute. So I'll call this ginger powder. I'll give it that 10 because that really helps me later on understand. That's what that's kind of, just give me a quick remembering how I actually did it. So I've got essentially my app set up. I'm going to take that old sensor away. Notice, I mean, this is a scientific instrument, but how easy it is to actually, I think it's fairly easy to operate, especially for a scientific instrument. Now I'm going to close it up, right? Closed up. Now I'm going to deliberately do something that I know will, not so much an error, but I just want to kind of show you that, when you've got a ginger powder, you could, you could sort of anecdotally kind of guess. So yeah, okay, well, it's going to be more intense in gingerol because all the gingerol's been condensed into that powder. So what I'll do is I'll take the 50 microliters, I'll put it onto the sensor. You can see it with such a slurry. Now I'll press continue. Again, I've only done a 1 in 10 dilution, so 1 in 10. Start measurement, and off it goes. Immediately, I see a very flat line here, right? So I know that this has already gone out, and again, another flat line. This has gone outside the range of the instrument. So it'll give me an answer, but I will not believe that answer. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I just want to kind of, I realize I've done all of that, and I was still sharing my screen with you. So I kind of slightly apologize because that was all a bit small on your screen. So I apologize for that, but that sometimes happens when you're really doing things live. So I should just make a quick summary. I weighed out 100 milligrams of the ginger powder. I put it into one of these little tubes. I suspended it in 900 microliters of buffer. I vortexed it for about 30 odd seconds. I came to this. I put 50 microliters onto the sensor. I measured it, and I know I've got a result here, But whilst the result was coming, I was like, no, I can see these flat lines, and I just want to show you what that really means now. So what I'll do is I'll share the screen back. I'll go into reports. I'll refresh. I gave it a distinctive name so I could find it. There we go. Ginger powder number 10. Right, so let's go in there and have a look. This is why I'm going to reject this particular data. I can see it. I can see this flat line here. See this flat line here. Look how distorted this is. I know it, but human beings are good at looking at patterns. If I look at the previous sample, I've got my peak 1, my peak 2, and my peak 3. See the way that's a nice peak and it's in, and I've captured it nicely. That's not the same here, and I've done this deliberately so that you can kind of see that, one can actually sort of see, well, there's something gone wrong here. But now I want to show you how I would, let's say, correct that. So it's a ginger powder. I've only done a 1 in 10 dilution. Gingerol is quite intense in ginger powder. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to grab my 100 microliter pipette. I'll put a clean pipette tip onto it. I will take my ginger powder, which is here. I am going to vortex this very quickly because you can see already that the powder and the liquid have separated. So let me just vortex it, because I want this sample to be homogeneous when I actually take that sample. So by that, I mean I want the sort of powder to be evenly distributed throughout that sample. So I've just vortexed it. I'm flicking it open. I'm taking my 100 microliters. My 100 microliters is in the pipette tip. Here's my 100 microliters. And I've got that into there now. I'm just going to put that down just for 1 second. Whoops-a-daisy. Whilst I then do that sort of, and I know it's pedantic, I'm going to do the, I'm going to dilute now. This is really a 1 in 10 suspension. I'm now going to take it to a 1 in 100 suspension. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right. I'll close the lid on this, which I've done, so that you can see the sort of powder sitting slightly at the bottom of this, and then above it the liquid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to vortex it again. What I'll do, I'll vortex it just quickly. So I'm vortexing it just quickly because what actually I'm going to do is I'm going to replace that sensor. So I don't need to, I'll put that down just for 1 second while I do a few other housekeeping jobs. I'll take that sensor out. I'll take a new sensor, which I'm now doing. I'll put the new sensor in here. I will snap that closed. I will prepare the app, because this is not ginger 10, this is ginger 100 now, because I've now basically taken the 1 in 10, done a further dilution on it. So I've renamed it so I can find it quick enough. Ginger powder 100. That'll be easy enough to find now. I'll just finish that sample prep already. You can see that, well, the powder's actually sunk to the bottom of this little vial. I'll just do them. I'll try and count about 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, Vong 5, Vong 6, Vong 7, Vong 8, Vong 9, 30. There we are, 30. Okay, so we got that suspension there. Again, a little bit pedantic, but also it's helping me remember what I'm doing, because I'm showing and talking at the same time. I've got the sensor in there. I've set up the app. I've got my 1 in 100. I'll take it. I'll put the 50 microliters onto the sensor. Which I have done. I'll go continue. Must remember this time to choose the 1 in 100. So I didn't use my 1 in 10. I did use my 1 in 100. I'll go start, and off it goes. I'm just looking at that. I can see it's quite intense still, but I may hope, not hopefully, I'll look at the raw data and assess that. Right. And that's a good result, by the way. That's coming at, well, it's my opinion, it's a good result. It's coming at 27,800 ppm. And now 27,800 ppm is about 3% by mass of gingerol. And it's definitely within my expectation. So I suppose it's worth saying that when we did the ginger extract, and I criticized myself for the ginger extract, that was about 200 and I want to say about 260, but I can check it up in a minute. So you can see how much more intense we are with the ginger powder. Now what I want to do is share my screen with you a little bit. Let's go back and look at the receipts, if I can call it that. So I did a 1 in 10 dilution. I knew what I was doing was a deliberate mistake because I said it's going to be, it's very flat-lined here. When I look at here, it's very distorted. And then I went and said, okay, let's go and look at that one in, I'll just do a refresh here. Let's dilute it a bit more, which I did here. Let's have a look at that data. And then I can see my peak 1, my peak 2, and my peak 3. I might actually get away with doing a bit more dissolution on this, but I can see the peak is nicely formed. I can see the way it's been captured here. So I can kind of, it's a good result because I'm using the right dilution, if I can call it that. So let's just go back and again, the results are saved up here, 27,000 ppm here. Date of test, time of test. You can see I'm doing this live from London. The operator, again, you can export as a PDF. And so you've basically got that, you can save. I mean, I would never print these things in a formal manner anymore, and put them in a folder. It's a bit, but this can be shared with, not an operator, but a quality manager, etc. So what I want to do now is I want to stop sharing for a second. So I've got a sample here, which was the original extract. And I have a sample here, which is, in fact, much more potent. In fact, what I want to do is I've got a 1 in 10 powder suspension here, and I've got a 1 in 10 dilution of extracts here. So I'm thinking, I have to kind of think in real time here, so excuse me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a clean pipette and I'm going to prepare a sample in front of you. First of all, I'm going to open this tube up. This is the ginger extract. I'm going to take 100 microliters of this. 1, and then another 100, 2. So I've got 200 microliters of that. I'm going to put this deliberately down now so I don't confuse myself. And then what I'm going to do, this is me now pretending that I'm actually making up some sort of juice or something along those lines. And I kind of need to blend these things together because I want to make a certain pungency of gingerol. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to vortex this again because, again, the powder separates quite readily, but I want a homogeneous. So I'm vortexing, vortexing, vortexing. And I'm only taking 50 microliters of this powder. So here it goes. Right, so I'm going to add 50 microliters to this 200 microliters. So I'm not imagining, I think this is the way it should be done, to be frank with you, that, rather than people sort of guessing, how to combine materials together in order to get to the right concentration. You can see I'm also almost doing micro experiments. And it's only because I get the real-time feedback that I can do this. So somebody's told me that I need to kind of, fortify a juice and raise it, or fortify this extract and take these to the next level. So I'm doing micro little blending experiments. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to test it. So I will take 50 microliters. I've blended powder and root extract together. In fact, I want to name that in the software. So this is essentially a blend. blend. It's basically a 10 dilution. I'll put 1 there. That will help me track it down later on when I look at the take the sensor out, put a new sensor in. I'm really sorry, but if you've ever used that much lab equipment, it's actually most of the time quite, essentially quite tricky. But you can see that this is actually, I think for all the lab equipment, this is one of the simplest analytical systems I've ever encountered. Right, so I'm going to open up the sample, take 50 microliters, put it onto the sensor. I will hit continue. I'm going to keep it on the 1 in 10. I'll go start measurement, and in fact I can see the way that's flatlined, so I can see it's already more intense than obviously the juice because I've actually put that powder in there. Let's have a look at this, but I will examine the data. Yeah, so it says 262, but I think it's actually so intense I'm going to need to do a further dilution of this. So let me go up and show you why I'm making that call. So I'll go up here. I've just do a quick refresh here. I can see my data here. Yeah, so it's flatlined. I can see it's distorted. So I just need to take this 1 in 10 and dilute it to a 1 in 100. So because I've augmented it with the powder, but now I've actually made it quite intense. But I want to accurately know what that total gingerol is in that blend. So I'm going to take the sensor out. I'm going to take 100 microliters of my 1 in 10, which is here. I should have really vortexed that a little bit. In fact, I might just vortex that just really quickly. Let me just put that back in. So I'll just count just quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I just want that homogeneous before I, because I don't want the sample I'm taking here to be representative. So I've done it. I'll put it into here. I'll put that down just for 1 second whilst I going to do a further dilution on it, and then we'll get to a more accurate result. So I'll take it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I just made a little slip at the end there, so just a little slip. But I want to do things live because you can appreciate that. I think we've almost done something like 5 tests in the whole time, and I've been talking at the same time. So I'm just gonna vortex that up. At this point, it's easier to vortex now because, in fact, it's more sort of liquid than anything. Right, I'm going to put that down for 1 second while I set up the rest of this. So I'm going to go into here. This is a blend that's 100 diluted. I'm doing this for accuracy purposes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a fresh sensor in. I'll put a sensor in now. Oops, anything. So this is not done a lot in the industry. And what I mean by not done a lot, people are sort of, first of all, not measuring. That's the first thing that's happening. And B, they're certainly not doing this kind of, well, now I've measured my inputs. How can I mix or control the ratio of these 2 inputs in order to achieve a certain output? And people are just, I don't believe that's happening because either they don't have the scientific insight or they don't have the equipment. Okay, so I'll go continue. Make sure I choose the 1 in 100. Do the start measurement. Because the measurement here actually only takes 12 seconds. So you can appreciate this real-time capability of making a sample, a real-time capability of, and that's perfect, to be honest with you. So now I've augmented that. So now it tells me that if I approximately mix in an approximate ratio, I think about 4 to 1 of those powders and that extract, then I can actually end up with a sort of product in this particular case of 8,370 ppm. Again, it gets me a little annoyed that people don't have the data when doing this kind of thing, and it's meant to you just kind of have to take people's word for things. But with this, you don't. Let's go into reports. Let's do a quick refresh. Let's go to my thing. All right, so I got my peak 1, my peak 2, and my peak 3. I'm really sorry, but those are really kind of distinctive. So the human brain is good at pattern recognition. Look at the way I get this nice peak here, the way we find the top here. I've got my results. I've got my my date, my time, my operator. Again, I can export. So I got for my quality record, and that will essentially jump up. Okay, great. So what I'll do now is I'm going to just do essentially a quick summary. So I think in the last 32 minutes, we've tested ginger root. In fact, this ginger root is pretty, I only had to do a 1 in 10 dilution on this because in fact, it's already quite old, soft. I can cut through this easily with a knife. So it's pretty old. So that's probably a good thing actually, because then it kind of, if the gingerol is particularly low, you might actually be quite skeptical on the storage conditions of the ginger root that's actually coming in. We measured that easy enough, just a 1 in 10 dilution. I then took the ginger powder, which I knew ginger powders have kind of single digit mass percentages. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% gingerol in them, which translates to things like 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 ppm of gingerol. So I measured that, but I had to go to 1 in 100. And then I actually blended the two together because I'm kind of imagining then that you're trying to make this drink or some product and you want to get to a certain sort of pungency of that. And so I blended them together, but I had to make sure that when I did the final test on that blend, I was actually using a 1 in 100 dilution because the gingerol in the ginger powder had raised up the gingerol so much relative to the extract. So I will just go to a final screen, remind myself to just kind of say, appreciate you coming this morning. I will send you a recording of this probably this morning or your evening, because I know some of you are in Asia. And if you do have any questions, then don't hesitate to reach out to us. Okay, thanks very much.